Force. Hey guys, it's Klaus. Welcome back to another episode. And did you know that the preferential premium tanks are back? Or are they? Well, the Raging Gamer from the MOB clan, shout out to you guys, has sent me this replay and claims that the preferential premium tanks are back in town. Now, what do I actually mean by that? Well, what I mean, I guess, is that the preferential matchmaking premium tanks have been in the doghouse for a little while, ever since the new matchmaker was introduced. You know the story, right? In the old days, these preferential matchmaking Tier 8 premium tanks would quite often be top tier in Tier 8, 7, 6 games and never see Tier 10s. Well, today they still never see Tier 10s, but are quite often bottom tier in a Tier 8, 9 game. And, here we go, watching the Raging Gamer who, oh, look at this, he's in a Tier 8, 7, 6 game in his IS-6, which has been buffed. So, well, of course you think they're back in town, buddy, because you're playing an IS-6 with the old type matchmaking with a better tank. A better tank. Do you guys know what's going on? Did you know that all the preferential matchmaking tanks have just been buffed? Well, before we get to enjoy Raging Gamer play his buffed IS-6, let's look at the changes. Preferential premiums. We're here on the World of Tanks website. The preferential matchmaking premiums are being polished after their latest characteristic changes. Find out what's happened to all 10 of these vehicles. Yeah, let's read the article. And I urge you guys all to go and have a look, because they list all the changes here. In May, we shared our plans for preferential matchmaking, which were later detailed in July. We walked through how we aim to improve the vehicles themselves and current issues with the matchmaker. It's a very important topic, and we're pleased to share the latest information on improvements to preferential matchmaking vehicles. These tweaks and changes will make them much more competitive in both Tier 8 and 9 battles. Okay, well, and you look at the KV5 here, better aim time, better dispersion, faster, higher pen, improved front and rear armor. All right, and those are all 10 of them. The KV5's key characteristics will be improved: firepower and survivability. Well, that's interesting, because they were talking about nerfing it initially, but I guess they're not nerfing the armor. The new value for standard shell will increase combat effectiveness versus Tier 8 and 9. Okay. What is this? Improved armoring for the once vulnerable weak spots will increase the combat performance. Wall of engine transmission compartment. I hope that's the little R2-D2 unit there. Weak spot there. Okay, the IS-6. Same sort of thing. Faster aim time, more shells, better dispersion, a little bit higher pen. Not great, 186. Okay, APCR buff. The IS-6 will enforce its role as a first-line fighter. All right. Improved frontal armoring. Well, let's keep reading here. I'm going to give you my no bullshit opinion in a minute. Situation. The problem. The vehicles with preferential status are likely to get matched into dual or single tier battles, where their status combined with combat parameters does more harm than good. In certain battles, they can't compete with Tier 9 and feel inferior against Tier 8 vehicles. Well, that's because all the new Tier 8 vehicles are better, and the matchmaker puts these tanks versus Tier 8s and 9s almost all the time. Anyways, let's continue here. The goal: improve the experience for preferential vehicles while keeping the preferential matchmaking parameter and their unique characteristics intact. Well, that is good. Okay, we're going to keep preferential matchmaking. Remember, they were talking about removing preferential matchmaking, but it looks like that's not going to happen. Okay, so the solution here: all-around vehicle rebalance on a vehicle-by-vehicle basis to improve their statistics, combined with matchmaker rule revision. The latter is aimed at reducing instances of getting matched at the same position, top, middle, bottom. Wait a minute, I think that's a typo. Reduce the incidence of getting matched at the same position, bottom, bottom, bottom. I've never had the situation where I've had to have a reduction in the incidence of being matched top, 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 for instance. So I think that's a typo. But anyways, we want to reduce the incidence of this happening on the list for several battles in a row by fixing the current template. Okay. Side note, let's look at regular Tier 8 vehicles face similar issue with matchmaking, amplified by the fact that they also compete against Tier 10s. Yeah, okay, yada, yada, yada. The first stage has been done. Here are the steps that we've already taken. We started with making characteristic and statistical changes to the 10 preferential matchmaking vehicles we currently have in the game. And On and on and on here. For example, the IS-6 has received buffs, but it will not eclipse the IS-3. The IS-6 only sees up to tier 9, and the IS-3 sees up to tier 10s. Okay, so it looks like the preferential matchmaking tanks will not be as good as their same tier counterparts. The iterations. First iteration, level the preferential matchmaking vehicles with each other. Second iteration, choose the parameters for improving the vehicle's characteristics on a case-by-case basis. Third, polish these changes. All right. Okay, using statistics, it's easy to see the big things that need changing. Well, statistically speaking, these preferential matchmaking tanks suck, so we need to make changes. All right, let's go. Next steps here. Let's pause it right here. So basically what's happened so far is all of the preferential matchmaking tanks have received some buffs. That's what's happened in this patch. But there's a step 2. Let's read now the next steps. After the release of 9.18, the new matchmaker was introduced with 357, yet this system is not efficient for preferential matchmaking vehicles, or any tier 8 really. After all, they aren't as effective against their own tier and the tier higher. So what can be done? And now this next sentence is the most important sentence of the whole article. Our initial plan is to look at ways to change the matchmaker, and control distribution among all 6 template possibilities. And then they go on to say more stuff, but that's the most important sentence. Control distribution among all 6 template possibilities. Let's add up the template possibilities for a preferential matchmaking tank. You could be top tier in 357. You can be one of the 3 tier 8 tanks in a tier 876 game. The second possibility is you could be top tier in a 510 template, so 5 tier 8s and 10 tier 7s. Third possibility, you can be in an all tier 8 game, technically top tier, but it's all tier 8. Fourth possibility, you could be bottom tier in a 510 template, 5 tier 9s and 10 tier 8s. Are there any other possibilities for a preferential matchmaking tank? You can't see tier 10s. I think there's only 4 possibilities right now for the preferential matchmaking tanks. Now we're just looking at some of the other changes here, and we'll go back to the game here. But the key takeaway is that they're going to work on the matchmaker to make sure that hopefully, that you're not always bottom tier. Because that's really the issue now, is when the game starts and you're in a tier 8, the matchmaker immediately looks for some tier 9s and 10s to matchmake you against. Or if you're in a preferential premium, it immediately looks for some tier 9s to put you against so you can be in a 510 template as bottom tier. And nobody wants to be bottom tier every freaking game. So what's happened so far, and I'm going to give you my no bullshit opinion here. Basically all that's happened so far is the tanks have been buffed. That's step 1. And funny enough, the Raging Gamer sends me a replay here in his IS-6, and he's kicking ass because he is truly top tier here in a 357 with a buffed tank. This is a better situation than the preferential matchmaking tanks had 5 years ago, because yeah, you would get games like this a lot where you were top tier, and now on top of it, he's been buffed. He does have some counterparts that like the P Victoria, and maybe there could have been a defender or something on the enemy team that are maybe more powerful than some of the older tanks, but he's got the best of everything now here. So are they back in town? Well, hold on a second. We've only seen the first step. We've seen that they've been buffed. And these buffs are not huge buffs. They're still worse than their counterparts. Like this thing still has less than 190 pen on its regular round. Okay, so it's not, this isn't a defender. So are they back in town yet? Well, we've got to wait to see what happens with the matchmaker. And this is the cynical way of looking at it. They've been buffed now so that you can get out there and deal with tier 9s. Not in this game. He's lucky enough not to have tier 9s in this game. But you're buffed enough now that you can handle the kind of the power creep tier 8s and the tier 9s out there. So the cynical way of looking at it is, they've been buffed because you're going to continue, of course, to see lots of tier 9s. And be technically bottom tier in the old preferential matchmaking lingo. I think that this whole word, preferential matchmaking, should be changed now. There's nothing preferential about it anymore. It's just a different matchmaking. They get less of a spread, but there's nothing preferential anymore. It just means that they're not going to see tier 10s. I mean, in the old days, you were preferentially top tier a lot, and now you're just, you preferentially get to fight tier 9s a lot. But anyways, let me get back to what I was saying here. It's all going to be down to what happens when they change this matchmaker. And the matchmaker is more complicated than you think, because you can't just say, oh well, make your top tier more often, or oh, why don't we just have all tier 8 should just see tier 8s, no plus minus 2, everything would be solved. Well, it's not as easy as that. You say, oh, we played Frontline and it was all tier 8s and it was great. Yeah, it was great until you look at the stats and you find out that the Defenders and the Patriots and the Scorpions were 80% better than all the other tanks. Right? You can't just have one tier matchmaking unless there's balance among the tanks, and there's not. If we just had straight flat matchmaking, then the team with the most Defenders would win. And the matchmaker actually has a job in balancing the games, because statistically, after thousands of games, when they find out that the Defender is so good, and when a team has Defenders, the team with the most top tier Defenders wins. Well, no surprise that now when you own a Defender, you're bottom tier all the time, to remove that statistical anomaly of letting you win easily all the time when you're top tier. Now, I don't know if the matchmaker does that, if it balances the tanks depending on their statistic win rates and stuff. I don't know exactly how the matchmaker works. And nobody knows how it works. And you can't just say, for example, that you take all the templates, the 3, 5, 7, so the tier 8s there's 7 tier 8s, 5 tier 9s, 3 tier 10s, therefore 7 out of 15 times you should be bottom tier, 5 out of 15 times you should be mid, and 3 out of 15 times you should be top. It doesn't work like that, because like they said, there's 6 different possibilities. It all depends on, if you're playing a tier 8, how many tier 9s are playing, how many tier 10s, how many tier 7s, how many tier 6s, how many are on the server as a whole, all playing the different tier tanks. The matchmaker has all these things to juggle. So you can't just say, well, I want it to do this all the time. The thing that you want it to do is you want it to do something different all the time. You don't want it to put you bottom tier every time. Perhaps they have to add a statistical chance of what template you end up on, and making the preferential template not the 3, 5, 7 bottom tier for regular tanks, and not the 5, 10 bottom tier for preferential matchmaking tanks. And keep track of what templates you've gotten into, so that the next one won't be the same one. So basically, some variety. And this is what I asked for a long time ago. If you recall a video I did a while back where I gave my no bullshit opinion that this is all I wanted. Let's have a listen. I want to sometimes be bottom tier and get shit on by the tier 10s. Sometimes I want to be middle tier and I can have an average game and fight as hard as I can. And sometimes I want to be fucking top tier. That's all I want. Okay? I just want to be top tier some fucking time. And that's basically it. That's basically it. And we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. Now, if the new matchmaker comes out, matchmaking revisions, I don't know when it's going to come out, in the next few patches or whenever they do it. If I log on and I play 10 games and I'm sometimes top tier and I'm sometimes middle tier and I'm sometimes bottom tier, then that is fucking great. That would just be fantastic. And I don't care if you like the tank, if you think the IS-6 is good, or the KV-5 is better, or the FCM-50T is no good, or the Type 59 is the... It doesn't matter. Those are just little, you might like the tank, you might hate the tank. That's personal opinion. Some are good, some are bad, some are better. It doesn't matter. But, okay, key things so far is, number one, they have kept the preferential matchmaking characteristics of the tanks. Check, that's good. Number two, they've buffed them slightly so that you haven't been power creep to shit. That even when you're playing against the tier 9s and your counterparts in tier 8, you've got a fighting chance. Okay, check. And last thing to do is, well, they're working on the matchmaker. They're going to quote-unquote fix the matchmaker. And I am looking forward to that. Because if they actually get it right, that you just see some variable matchmaking. And I don't agree with people that there should be +1, -1, or we should only see our same tiers. I think variety is great. I think being bottom tier sometimes is okay, and being top tier sometimes is you'd be overpowered almost when you're top tier and struggling when you're bottom tier. As long as you get to see the whole range, and because that's one of the reasons the game is so great, because you get that complete wide variety of outcomes. You could be utterly shit, just having the worst time of your life in one game, and then 2 minutes later you click battle, and the enemy team has all the Muppets, and you're top tier, and you just have the game of your life. And it's the dynamic range. The dynamic range is what gives us that response in most games. And when the matchmaker puts you in the same matchmaking over and over and over again, specifically bottom tier, then that's killed the dynamic range, because it's made you like bottom tier every game. What's the dynamic range in that? Now, these revisions to the matchmaker are so important for the game that I'm going to give my advice to Wargaming, if you're listening. Do it carefully, do it the best way you can, but roll it out like this. This is my idea, is roll it out for a week once you got the new matchmaker ready to go. Don't just, sell it and say, we've got the new revised matchmaker. It's fantastic. You're going to love the game is great. It's perfect. Everyone's happy. And then you release it and it's shit. That's a possibility. And you got to realize that maybe it might need some tweaks, some refinements. So do it this way. Choose a long weekend or a week period and roll it out as a test, and to much fanfare, and let everyone play it. And then have a survey that people have to complete to actually give you important feedback on their experience with the new matchmaker. Now, no one fills those out, right? Everyone's so freaking lazy. They're just going to complain afterwards. That's the nature of people. But this is what you do. You have a long weekend event. And then everyone who plays on that weekend gets a Tier 4 premium tank for free, under the condition that A, they've played at least 50 games or 25 games or something, a good statistical size on that weekend. Play 50 games in the new matchmaker, or with the new matchmaker on this long weekend event, and fill out this survey and give us your feedback on your experience. Then you can come out and say, look, we tested the new matchmaker. This many thousands of people replied, and 76% of them liked it, and we're rolling it out. And then no one's, people can't fucking complain. If they've experienced it, they're going to fill out the survey to get a stupid little Tier 4 premium tank. Otherwise, they won't. They'll just complain afterwards. Let me tell you, I know people, and that's what they're going to do. But roll it out that way, something like that, right? That's just an idea, but you guys are smarter. You can come up with maybe a more ingenious thing, but don't just roll it out and say, it's great, take it, or leave it. We're so good, it's great. Don't do that. Say, look, we've tweaked it, we've changed it, test it for this weekend event, fill out the feedback form, play at least 50 games, and you win a little Tier 2 garage slot shitty premium. And let me tell you, dangle that in front of people, and they're going to fill out the feedback form. And then you'll actually know what the community thinks. Because those volunteer feedback forms, everyone ignores them. But anyway, it's such an important... the matchmaker is so important for the game. All I'm saying, I've got my fingers crossed. Please, don't fuck it up. And... that's all I got today, guys. I'm losing my voice because I've got a bit of a cold, but I'm really interested in your comments. Leave some comments in the comments section of what you think of the changes, what you hope for with the new matchmaking revision, and let me know if you've rolled out in your preferential matchmaking tanks, and whether it was a lot more fun with the buffs. Thanks, guys.